how Instagram changed women forever. And this is by The Moon. If you've been here for a little bit, you know we've been reacting to some content, and we've reacted to The Moon videos beforehand. And The Moon, ironically enough, not only does it control the waves on our planet, but also cranks out some banger YouTube videos. And I'm not speaking on this on behalf of women, because I am not women, I am man. So I want to speak on how Instagram has changed men forever. And I have a funny feeling this is going to be all women based, but there has to be some type of mental fuckery that dudes have had, especially my generation who's 30, who had to grow up during the 90s, Dragon Ball Z, and training hard, and all of this. Yo, thank you for the follow. What's up, Setup? But all of these guys who have seen like G.I. Joes, the Gokus in the world, to where it's like, if you're not number one, if you're not the strongest in the universe, then you are truly alone. The strongest isn't alone. Yeah, they may feel alone, but they have everybody around them because society flocks to them because they are strong. But the ones who are deemingly not weak, but not the strongest, those are the ones who truly feel alone because nobody is seeking to them. So I wanted to speak on this in terms of like just from a dude's POV.
If one trend of 2023 shows how far we've fallen, it was the Barbie Botox. Named after the toy's signature long neck, the procedure spread like wildfire on Instagram after the release of the film.
Okay, so if we have Barbie Botox of people trying to look like Barbie, do we not have the same thing for dudes in terms of being overly jacked, overly muscular, and overly masculine? And granted, I think there's been a hard shift away from that because we've had a lot of feminization coming into our media. But for dudes growing up in my time, the G.I. Joes, He-Man, Thundercats, Avatar, all of these things. I want to say Avatar: The Last Airbender, but even Avatar: The Last Airbender, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, all of the Bleach, all of this has this. If you're not training to become stronger, then you're not becoming better.
Series of injections to the trapezius muscles in the neck renders them unable to contract, which lowers your shoulders and makes your neck look slightly longer. Despite the risk of muscle paralysis and severe pain, thousands of people rushed out to get this hot new treatment. But this is a very recent phenomenon. No one did this in the past. No movie made people do this kind of thing. And that's when you realize that the Barbie Botox is just the tip of a massive iceberg, a trend that's hiding behind the surface. You see, the plastic surgery industry has been booming for years off the back of Instagram and TikTok. Invasive procedures go in and out of fashion every month, as a young impressionable audience goes from one insecurity to another, fed to them by Instagram's algorithm.
Fair.
Meanwhile, celebrities and influencers work hand in hand with the industry, making promotional posts and boasting about their procedures and the results. As new procedures dip in and out of fashion, influencers target people's mental weaknesses and make a fortune drumming up clients for the industry. And now that plastic surgery is growing fastest among young adults looking to replicate the inhuman perfection they see on the app, it's time we really expose how Instagram is quite literally changing the face of the world. At the time of its founding, it would have been nearly impossible to predict the rise of Instagram into one of the biggest social media apps in the world.
All
but
of these
looking
social
back,
media platforms,
it's easy to see that all the right ingredients were
would
there for massive success. It all goes down to the founders Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger. The pair originally met while studying at Stanford, and even before they had started their careers, they were being headhunted by the big names in tech. Kevin Systrom even turned down an internship at Facebook to spend time studying photography in Italy. Kevin would go on to intern at Odeo, a small app which would later become Twitter,
eventually
and
buys
afterwards he would then
Instagram.
get headhunted by Google and worked there for 2 years. But even after a short time in the industry, Kevin was frustrated. He had just been passed up for a promotion and was sick of the culture of the company, and went against all the original ideas of Silicon Valley. Kevin wanted to fully throw himself into a creative idea and exploit an opening in the market by building something of his own. Kevin knew his old college friend Mike was just as ambitious as he was, and so he thought he would explain his vision for a new app, something he would tell Forbes in an interview a few years later. Mike Krieger and I created Instagram because we wanted a way to communicate visually. We realized that we'd be taking all these photos with our iPhones that would sit on our camera roll, and it felt like they should be seen, not necessarily because they were good photos, but because a photo that no one sees isn't really that interesting. Every photo you take communicates something about a moment in time, a brief slice of time.
And that idea brought out Instagram. That's actually kind of cool.
You were, who you were with, and what you were doing. And funnily enough,
that actually has a deeper meaning. Of photos that isn't seen aren't really that interesting.
Kevin and Mike immediately got to work on Instagram, pouring everything they had into this new app. And in just 2 weeks, they had already secured $500,000 of funding from investors and were starting to get it ready to launch to the public. But it still wasn't easy. It took the pair a year of work to get everything ready, but they still weren't prepared for what would happen next. Now, there was plenty of interest in the app, and they could tell this from the demos. And so as soon as they launched the app, Within just the first week, Instagram had gained over 100,000 users in 2010. This was the
Nowadays, that
highest
would be
amount
a
of
failure
users
of an
gained
app.
for any single social media app in history. The service for the app and the infrastructure wasn't enough to keep up with the massive influx of users. The new company that barely had anyone working for it had already far exceeded expectations, and so they would have to invest tons back in just to keep the app functional, with back-end tweets and more processing power. And so the first year was just a mad rush to keep up with the user base, with Kevin and Mike sacrificing everything in their lives to keep it afloat. But just when they thought they had gotten on top of the growth, there would be more crashes and more problems to deal with. But as time went on, and they streamlined the process, their hard work was richly rewarded. You see, investors saw this and knew they had to get a piece of the pie. In less than 2 months after its launch, the app already hit 1 million users, and Instagram was injected with $7 million of investor funding, particularly through Systrom Silicon Valley connections. And users just loved how you could make your photos look so much better than other apps like Facebook. And the key here was filters. Brought in relatively early on to make up for the poor quality of smartphone cameras at the time, the introduction of various photo filters would prove revolutionary. With the touch of a button, users could iron out their wrinkles, cover up any blemishes, and transform their mundane experiences into picturesque moments. What was meant as a simple
And that was the moment everything went awry.
fix for the lacking technology of the time took on a life of its own. Filters gave Instagram an air of perfection and artistic expression that transcended the dull, boring photos your relatives were posting on Facebook at the time. Although Kevin and Mike could never have foresaw what they had really created and how this would be used in the future. But at the same time that Kevin and Mike were building the photo app of the future, something else was going on. Other people were laying the groundwork for an entirely different way to push past the limits of natural beauty. Now, if you're going to blame anyone for the massive rise in plastic surgery, then you'd have to talk about people like the Kardashians. They were unique among celebrities at the time because they truly offered nothing except for their image and their lifestyle. Coming to fame in 2007 after her viral sex tape, Kim and the gang went on to hold their 15 minutes of fame and stretched it out over multiple decades. Kim and her family's signature look exploded onto modern culture and still has an effect on beauty standards today. The modern world's obsession with full lips, big butts, and stenciled eyebrows is in large part thanks to them. Of course, the image they sold to the world so easily didn't really bear any relation to reality. First, as you can probably guess, there's all the cosmetic surgeries and procedures they've gone through to get there. Then countless layers of makeup, professional photography, and Photoshop are added on. And out of thousands of those photos, only a select few are chosen to be shown to the public. Before the rise of social media, this kind of deception was only available to the rich and famous. Even their own influence alone has a huge effect on the cosmetic surgery industry.
There's a lot of hard work though that goes into keeping a body like that though. And the mental wherewithal to like hold that 15 minutes and stretch it all.
When a 17-year-old Kylie Jenner boasted of getting lip fillers to achieve her signature look, online searches for the procedure went up by over 3,000%. The so-called Brazilian butt lift procedures have only grown in popularity thanks to Kim and her family. The procedure involves a surgeon taking fat deposits from elsewhere on the body and then transferring them to the buttocks. Between 2000 and 2018, the amount of butt lift procedures has risen by over 250%. Over time though, the procedures fades away and the results disappear, so regular procedures are required to keep it up. Even the Kardashians themselves regretted the procedure in the end, with Kim recently admitting that she'd stopped having her top-ups. The procedure is massively popular, but also incredibly risky compared to other cosmetic surgery. When it goes wrong, people can get nasty infections and sometimes require surgery to remove the implants. Or if the fat gets into the bloodstream, it can actually cause embolisms and blockages to vital organs. One in every 4,000 people die as a result of the complications, which
Damn, that's way 1 in 4,000 is way. You're more likely to die from that than like in a plane or something crazy like that. No.
Is what led to the UK banning it in 2018. Eventually they reversed the decision in 2022 after bringing in new safety regulations, but there's still a whole world of unlicensed practitioners performing a different version of the procedure. While they're not allowed to perform the surgical version with the potentially fatal side effects, they're still allowed to blindly inject people with artificial substances. It's not like the UK's ban really did anything anyway. The people who were determined enough to get it done were freely able to just go abroad to places like Turkey or Mexico where the procedure is completely legal and often mostly unregulated and far cheaper. Even today, there's countless adverts for this all over Facebook and Instagram. But nothing has promoted plastic surgery and made the world more plastic and fake than it's ever been like Instagram. The Kardashians might have remained in the background for most people, ending up as has-been stars like so many before them. But instead, their recipe for success based on their looks and their status alone was about to go global. And that was all thanks to Instagram. But how did an innocent photo sharing website become the money-making machine it is today? The answer is Mark Zuckerberg. You see, Zuck's vision for a social media business was a lot different compared to Kevin Systrom or Mike Krieger. While they were thinking about how to make money from people's photos, Mark was interested in commodifying the people instead. Even before Mark started Facebook, he had already demonstrated his true feelings towards his users. While he's rejected that the film The Social Network was true in his account of his website FaceMash.
Right, like they just can't wrap their head around the idea that someone might build something because they like building things.
The evidence shows that it wasn't that far off. Articles from Harvard newspapers show how he plundered Harvard's registers for pictures of people's faces. He then used these to create a website where people could rank each other on attractiveness, while the backend secretly assigned them their own rating out of 10. While it was quickly shut down, the stunt informed the future
I definitely remember this scandal.
development of Facebook to a massive degree. Facebook did the same thing in turning its users into the product, just in a more sinister way. It was all about maximizing engagement for users, whilst plundering all the possible data they could find, and then selling this to advertisers and giving them easy targets for their campaigns was the final step in the profit machine. Whilst these weren't new ideas, Zuckerberg perfected them at Facebook. A combination of aggressive data hoarding and addictive design practices turned Facebook into one of the biggest companies in the planet, almost overnight. But already by the early 2010s, and Zuckerberg knew deep down that Facebook would be on the way out at the end of the decade, as he was failing to capture the next generation, and was losing out to younger, more organic apps like Instagram. Meanwhile, things weren't amazing at Instagram either. Sure, growth was solid and the business was doing well, but after 2 years of grinding away, Kevin and Mike were sick of doing it alone. Now, they had built up a team by this point, but it was always an uphill struggle to keep up with the growth of the app. Some sort of merger or acquisition would put an end to these troubles. It would give them all the investments they needed, with the added bonus of the infrastructure to push Instagram to the next level. So after turning down a few other suitors, Kevin and Mike sold the company almost entirely to Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook in 2012.
For a Billy!
Americans share photos on Instagram. A company with only 13 employees bought today by Facebook for $1 billion.
At first, it seemed like they made the right choice. Kevin and Mike were still semi-independent, and they were free to grow the app however they wanted. And through the intelligent use of their new resources, Instagram had exploded in popularity. Within a year, they hit 50 million users, then 100 million a few months afterwards. But this all came at a cost, because it wasn't long before Mark came in to slowly force the founders out along with their original principles, allowing Facebook to make changes to the app and its business model forever. In 2014, Facebook pushed for changes to the data hoarding practices, making the app use Facebook's invasive tactics. A year later, they gave advertisers far more power on the app, letting them run 30-second adverts and buying products directly through the app, compromising your personal information and data security with the new hands of Mark Zuckerberg.
It is kind of nice, though, being able to buy something directly from Instagram. I'm not gonna lie. I've done it a few times now. Granted, shipping, sometimes a little sketch. Sometimes you get it, next week. Sometimes it's 3 months later. But it's kind of convenient. I kind of like it.
Man notorious for exploiting all of your information and using it against you. That's why while you're exploring services like Instagram, every sign-up or interaction might expose you to potential spam, scams, or identity theft. But imagine navigating these apps like Instagram with complete control over your personal information, never having to compromise your privacy for the sake of convenience. Well, this is where our video sponsor Cloak steps in. You see, Cloak uses advanced technologies like client-side and the most insidious changes that happened when Zuckerberg took over Instagram were far more subtle. In 2014, Instagram added a whole suite of different editing tools. The app went from a place to post filtered pictures of your real life into a showroom for the best looking photos of yourself that you could possibly create. By 2016, they made it so algorithms would decide what photos the app would show you. Instead of giving you a timeline of the photos that your friends had posted, Instagram would only show what it thought you would engage with the most, laying the groundwork for the addictive design that Facebook had already mastered. When Facebook began pushing for location tracking, it was the final straw for Kevin and Mike. They hated the direction the app was taking. They saw that Zuckerberg was using their app as a machine that turned people's addictions into a weapon against humanity. They thought that Zuck's push for maximum engagement would lead to some of the worst problems that we see today in society. The environment on Instagram was now a constant competition to get the most followers and the most likes on your photos, always having to look the best you possibly could for the algorithm, with the aid of Instagram's inbuilt Photoshop. Unlike the founders, Zuckerberg didn't care at all that the problems on the app would soon spill over into society. As long as it kept making him billions, it didn't matter. Eventually in late 2018, Kevin and Mike gave up fighting against the tide and just decided to leave the company company entirely, leaving Mark Zuckerberg free to fully realize his plans for Instagram, and this has had an awful effect on society ever since. You see, plastic surgery was still a niche industry up until this point. It was only reserved for medical purposes, Hollywood actors and trophy wives.
Damn!
It wasn't nearly as common as it was today, but all of this changed with the arrival of Instagram in the early 2010s. Almost overnight, we saw a rapid
We've heard all of this coming from the side of just women and mostly the Kardashians, right? And there's been no individual dude that has done it that for guys, unless you're somebody who's motivated by like Goku or Naruto or something along those lines, which I would argue is probably a positive outlet. But still, even with some of the stuff like for the Kim Kardashians about looking good and like making a business out of a brand, I think that's the beautiful side of the Kardashians. In fact, I think Kim is probably uberly smart, right? And she's done so many things that people will discredit her. Yes, she has a sex tape, and that's what got her 15 minutes of fame. But it's her who kept that 15 minutes and expanded it to what it is today. But for dudes, all of this, I see this for guys, but in the sense of like working out, being alpha, and now that turned into this weird toxic masculinity. Andrew Tate smoking cigars in the rain, playing poker while you're having one chick hold your cigar while another one is rubbing your back. Sure, dope as fuck, but there probably needs to be some balance, right? And I've been a big fan of like Musashi Miyamoto's book of the 5 Rings, and he went under an artistic name. This is a guy who defeated 60 plus men in one-on-one combat, never lost a single fight, but believed just as strongly as a sword strike as the brush of a stroke. And if there's one thing that, we'll get back to this. I don't want to dive off into a philosophical tangent, but just all of this could be seen through a dude's lens. We're not doing this, unless you're fucking James Charles, which I guess some dudes have been taken this way because they're seeking greatness, and they're seeing this they're not seeking greatness, they're seeking attention. Right, there's a difference between seeking greatness and seeking attention. And all of these people are people who are seeking attention because at the end of the day, they all feel alone. At the end of the day, every single person who's on Instagram right now, and this video is really about, mostly girls, but guys could do this too, is people who are seeking attention. And those people who are seeking attention is ultimately because they feel alone. And I think that speaks to a much bigger problem than just the manipulation of Instagram.
People presented themselves online, and the images of people we see. Now, we've already discussed what the Kardashians and other celebrities would do to get the perfect picture. After the surgeries, camera angles, and airbrushing, the final image is barely recognizable as the person it depicts. Instagram puts this power into the hands of the people. With the high-powered camera in people's pockets, they could take what would have been a normal photo, add a filter and some Photoshop to it, and create a vision of perfection. All the little flaws and blemishes that make people human got ironed out. Now nearly anyone could achieve the level of unrealistic perfection that Grace magazine covers.
You can change the discussion, but
you're
not listen. We're almost done with this video. We can change it at the we'll shift afterwards. Give us about like 8 more minutes.
But Instagram took this to the next level. 100 timesing this problem by turning it into a global competition with millions of fans and billions of dollars on the line for the winners. So of course it wasn't long before people realized that to win this game you had to go as far as possible for the Instagram algorithm to bless you.
Oh, perfect. Is that a dude? I don't know. I agree it's a problem with beautiful people.
To bless you, you had to do whatever
either it's people trying to be beautiful, right? Like at the end of the day, you could watch the rest of the Moon's video, and I'm going to stand by what I'm saying with this. I'm looking at this. The video is titled as How Instagram Changed Women Forever, but I don't think this is just a woman issue. Whenever I see these things, in my eyes, I never think it's just a single sex problem. Dudes and women both fall victim to this, and to me, and my stupid southern little brain, it's people who are seeking this attention are ultimately the ones who feel alone. The ones who are the utmost beautiful people, the Kim Kardashians of the world, right? The ones that this video is highlighting, they may feel alone or disconnected is probably a better way from like an ordinary person. But they're not truly alone because people are seeking their attention. If they go outside, people are going to flock like seagulls to wherever they're going. So you can't tell me they're truly alone. But it's the people who aren't ugly, but it's the people who aren't the most beautiful genetic lottery winning people who are working out, who are going above and beyond, right? Who are trying to do these things. They're the ones who are honestly seeking the attention of others and probably the attention of themselves because they feel alone. They're the ones who feel alone. Even though people are around them, it's not disconnected. It's a loneliness. And it's a loneliness in that pursuit of whatever it is that they're trying to achieve.